to a beer school class with me before, and I didn't run you off. This is good news. Okay, the rest of you, fresh blood. This is exciting. So my first beer school that I taught at Cicero's was 3 years ago, almost. So it was October 2013. And I remember saying something about my name. I remember beginning the class saying something like, my name is Kat Golden. You know, if you grow up with a name like Kat Golden, you only could possibly do one of two things. One is you either do something really cool, like become a brewer, or you just become a stripper. So I think that tonight, 3 years later, it's only appropriate that I give you a follow-up to that story. No, I have not become a stripper. Anyway, I just recently returned from a road trip that I took out to California. Ended up in San Francisco. And so I was in this bar in California. Shocker, right? And this guy walks in and sits down next to me, and he starts talking to me. And we chat for a little while, and throughout the course of our conversation, I find out that he's also in the craft beer industry. It's California. Everyone's in the craft beer industry, right? Or you work for Google, right? Those are your two options. But we haven't actually introduced ourselves by name at this point. So he pulls out a business card. You ever had those life moments where, like, it's an earth-shattering, like, life-defining moment where it's like, boom, it just hits you like a ton of bricks, and it ends up being burned into your brain like one of the defining life moments, even if you really wish that you could get rid of that moment? This was one of those moments. I looked down at his business card. I swear his name was Nick Platinum. I just got one-upped. So at this point, I'm thinking I got two choices. I either pull out my business card and show him that I just got one-upped, or I really frantically think of some other precious metal that's ultra cool, even better than platinum. But then titanium was the only thing I could come up with, and I'm like, Cat, titanium sounds like a bad sci-fi superhero or something. So I was like, dang it. So I give him my business card, Cat Golden, and of course he recognized that he had one-upped me. And so now, I've been considering going through group therapy to kind of help me, get over this, work through this blow to my fragile ego. But then I realized that drinking enough beer till you just don't care anymore is a hell of a lot cheaper. So let's drink some beer. So Mark Twain Brewing Company opened 2 years ago, so July of 2014. So for those of you, we're in Hannibal, by the way. So for those of you who have not been to Hannibal since your fourth grade teacher dragged you there on a field trip to Mark Twain's house, you know who you are. Probably everybody sitting in a chair. Yep, I see hands. You need to go back and visit now because A, the brewery wasn't around then, and B, you weren't 21. So come back to Hannibal, come to the brewery. I have my business card here tonight. It's got my email on it. So if you guys decide that you want to take a trip up, give me a shout, and I'll make sure I'm there, and I'll give you a tour. Okay? All right, so our first beer. Do we have beer ready to rock and roll? Right on. I feel like I'm going to be attached to the microphone. Yes, I am. Short leash. Okay, so I'm going to unwind this, I think. There we go. All right, so this is Halley's Blueberry Saison. We named it Halley's for Halley's Comet. Some people say Haley's. But the reason why we named it Halley's is because Mark Twain was both born the year of Halley's Comet, and then he actually prophesied his own death. He said, I came in with the comet, and I shall go out with it, and he did. He died the year of Halley's Comet as well. So it's a French-style Saison. We use a French yeast, Y yeast 3711, Daniel. I brought my stat sheet, so I got it for you. So it's a French Saison. We use 84 pounds of fresh blueberries in this beer, and we use it in the boil. So we don't actually use it in the fermentation tank. We think that it really comes out a little bit more in the boil itself. It's very subtle, as real fruit will be, much more so than if you use extracts. We don't use extracts in any of our beers. Everything that we use is real fruit, real habaneros in our habanero apricot beer. So everything is real. It is 6.8% It is 20 IBUs, and delightful. Do you have any questions about this one? It's actually our seasonal. It's a spring and summer seasonal. You can see we actually have it bottled. That's actually pretty exciting because we just released our first run of packaged beer into the market in St. Louis this week. So Dave and I bottled. Yay! Dave and I bottled. We have a little forehead filler. We bottle everything by hand. We even put the labels on by hand. That's a fun job. Dave and I draw straws every time. It's like, seriously, it's like, well, it's really actually rock, paper, scissors. I usually lose, and I usually end up having to do this. So anyway, but yeah, we just released these bottles, and very soon thereafter, we will start releasing all of our other beers. We have 5 year-round beers that will be released into the market, and then we'll usually have some kind of seasonal that will be in the market in packaged style as well. So anyway, okay, again, any questions on this one? All right. Then let's move forward. Are we good for moving forward a little bit? Okay, I'll slow it down. Oh, okay. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, Daniel. 84 pounds. 84 pounds of blueberries. So they're pureed. We puree them. And put them in the boil. By pureeing fruit, which is what we normally do, we don't have our habanero apricot beer here tonight, but we puree the apricots as well. It just gives more surface contact than if you just throw whole fruit in without pureeing it first. Yeah. We have a 10 barrel. Yeah, we have a 10 barrel system. Mark's is the name of the manufacturer. It's American Stainless out in the Pacific Northwest. We have, let's see, 4 10-barrel fermenters, 1 20-barrel fermenter, so we can do a double batch if we wanted to. 10 barrels. So for those of you who are not quite as familiar with the gallon to barrel ratio, that's 31 gallons for a barrel of beer. That's not the same as in the distilling industry or the winemaking industry. The size of barrels varies. Obviously, in the beer making industry, we don't put beer in barrels that are 31 gallons, but this was the standard practice many years ago. It probably started in Britain, I imagine. But yeah, so now obviously when we talk about barrels, generally we keg in half barrels or 6 barrels or quarter barrels, etc. Yep. Yeah. Right on. Thank you. I really appreciate that. When Dave and I were developing this recipe, we love Belgian style beers, but to us there are 2 very different yeast profiles for Belgian beers, and some of them are super clovey, super bubblegummy. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you ever had a Saison? It's like, man, it's like sucking on cloves. But then the French Saison yeast is like a little bit more tame, and that's our preference. So that's why we use the 3711, the French Saison yeast, just because I think it gives more balance. It's not as overpowering, and you can get the other flavors so much better, and the aroma as well. Yeah. That's right. Nope, just dump it right on in. Yep, final 10 minutes of the boil. Mm-hmm. No, if we were to put the jalapenos in the boil, like none of us would be able to drink that beer. It would be like Drano. So no, we put the apricots in the boil in the Hucks, the beer. But then we put the peppers, the habanero peppers. We slice them and then we put them in a wine press and crush them. And then I take that extract and I shoot it. So the extract that we created, obviously from the fresh peppers, we shoot it directly into the finished beer right before we send it to the bright tank to carbonate it. Yeah. We are getting through, let's see, the other day we got through, I'm trying to remember how many cases in an hour. We did 46 cases of beer, and it took us maybe 3 hours. I mean, that's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It is very labor intensive because it's all manual filler. So it's not automatic at all. It's you open it, you watch the fills, you close it, So you flush it with CO2, you close that valve, you fill every bottle, you close each valve, you make sure all the fill levels are equal. It is, it's very labor intensive. The first time we did it as a sample bottling run, we hooked it up directly to our bright tanks, which that sounds normal, right? But our bright tanks are in the cooler because they're not double jacketed. So I looked like an Eskimo. And it was probably July, and I had on like 6 layers of clothes. I had on like a hat, like a ski hat. If I'd had a ski mask, I would have worn it. And after a couple hours of that, I was like cursing Dave, and I was like, never again. We're going to run a hose and do this outside in the brewery itself and not in the walk-in cooler. So yeah, things have improved drastically over the way I thought it was going to go when we first got the filler and tried it out. All right, are we good on this, or do we need a little more time? One more short story. Once upon a time, when Kat was a little girl. No, let me see. What else do we want to talk about? Well, how about the beers that we do year-round, just so that you guys are familiar in what you are going to be looking for, hopefully, in the market. So our Hucks, which I was just talking to you about, it's an American-style wheat beer with habaneros, fresh habaneros, and apricots. We use 84 pounds of apricots in that. And as far as the habaneros go, it generally ranges anywhere from 10 to 20 pounds, depending on each batch of habaneros. We have to taste the habaneros because each batch can vary significantly. Like 2 batches ago, we used 10 pounds of fresh habaneros. Last batch, we ended up having to use twice that much because they were just not as hot. I'm not the one who generally tastes them for their heat because my husband is like a pepperhead, so he's like, yeah, I'll do the taste test. I'm like, fine, you can destroy your taste buds. That's cool. Another one that we do is the Imperial IPA, King Arthur's Imperial IPA. It's one that we're going to drink tonight. We also have Jumping Frog, which is our American-style IPA. So it's a West Coast-style IPA with Centennial and Cascade hops. And we also have our Kolsch, Clemens Kolsch, which is a traditional German-style Kolsch. Lots and lots of Pilsner malts, very simple grain bill. I think that it's just a really beautiful example of a Kolsch. So if you're a Kolsch fan, I would suggest definitely keeping your eye out for that on the market. It's one of my favorites that we make. I think that may be it in terms of our year-rounds that we will be putting out on the market. Obviously the Saison for now, and then very soon you'll see that disappear, and it won't be back again until next spring. So if you like the Saison, definitely stock some bottle shops this week and grab what you can because it won't be around for that much longer. The red is, I thought I grabbed the bottle, but yeah, there it is, right there in the middle.
So I'll tell everybody this because I've looked. When I redid our bottle menu last time, which was about 7 or 8 months ago, I was looking for a red to put on the menu, and obviously red and amber, there's a fine line between those things for most people, but there's no year-round red, really. There just isn't. And so there really isn't one on our menu because of that. I found one that was year-round at the time, forehand Centennial red, and now a reprise red, and of course that's gone now. So, anyway, this is light reds. This is a fabulous red. It's year-round, so I highly recommend that you drink this all the time because I think it's weird that most places think that red is a fall beer, and for me, there's nothing fall about it. I just think it should be year-round because nothing about this style is indicative of the season for me. For most brewers, that's how they do it.
I think that also with this style of beer, as people's palates evolve. I think a lot of people, the trend in the U.S. is just stuff as many hops in there as you possibly can. I don't know if that's a trend that you're noticing, but it's definitely one that I am. And so I think it's nice to have a good variety of beers in your portfolio. We have some good maltier ones like this one. We also have and a Kolsch, of course. And we also have IPA. So a nice diverse portfolio. Obviously, I think being able to reach everybody and finding something that everybody is going to like. Any questions about our red ale? More stories. Forget the beer, Cat. Just let us drink and you tell stories. So you're coming around now, I guess, with our double IPA, our Imperial IPA. No? I don't think so. but we can do that. Okay, we did. We're doing that. We're apparently doing that. That's fine. This is super exciting. I'm really excited about talking about this one in particular. It's okay. I guess I'll forgive you this time. I know. I'm keeping count. Okay, so this beer is called Legacy 77. Chad just got a beautiful new tap handle that he's got over there for you guys to check out. You'll definitely have to check it out. But Chad and I talked about doing a house beer. This would have been like last November, I think, because we were going to start distributing in St. Louis in January. And so, I contacted Chad. I'm like, hey, can we bring by some beer to sample? And we're going to be launching soon, and I'm hoping that you'll like some of our beer and want to give us a shot. And I had known Chad from my previous life of brewing at another brewery in the St. Louis area. And so, yeah, O'Fallon. And so we met up, and he sampled beer, and he said, Kat, I've really been interested in having someone make a house beer for me. And Dave and I were just like ecstatic. That would be so cool. How awesome would it be to be the brewers who get to make the beer that goes on tap as the house beer for the original craft beer bar in the city of St. Louis. So we were like, we're on it. What do you want? What's your vision? And he said, I've really been thinking about like a hoppy brown ale or something. I want something that people can drink more than one of, something that will go with our food. What do you think? Can you come up with something? And Dave and I said, absolutely. So I was thinking, okay, it's making a brown ale that's hoppy is a challenge because hops, if you've ever had like an American stout, do you know what I'm talking about? An American stout? Hops really amplify bitterness on malt. So like if you're using black malt or brown malt, if you don't use the right hops, you can end up having this like bitter, very unpleasant thing going on. And so that was my concern is how do we, because I had never made an India Brown before. So thank you. And so my concern was, okay, how do we get the balance here? We want the beautiful color, we want a little roastiness, but we also want the hops. So we started, trying to think about ways to accomplish that. So I thought about adding brown sugar. Obviously, you don't want to add too much because you don't want it to be overly sweet, right? But it might help curb a little of the bitterness from the brown malt when you're adding those hops. So we decided to do that. We added brown sugar, and what we do in the process is, I'm going to take a sip of this first. Hold on. I can't just hold this and not have it.
Want me to tell a story while you're drinking?
Yeah, sure.
Tap handle. This is the tap handle, and this fellow sitting at the bar. Most of you guys know Bill Newberry, sitting at the front of the bar there. He has a company called Newberry Furniture, and they make awesome woodworking, everything pretty much. The little caddies that we carry around, they make those. The caddies that some people bring to class, they make those. So I called him like, 4 days ago, Bill? Yeah. And I was like, Bill, I need a tap handle. Like, this is what I want. I want 77 carbs at the top. I want it to say legacy running down the handle. I want it to be easy to read and really simple, and that's what I'm looking for. And I figured he was going to say, yeah, sure, whatever. So he emailed me back, and he's like, sure, let's do it. So the next day, he sent me kind of a mock-up drawing of it, and this is what it was, and I was like, it's perfect. Exactly what I want. Something you can read from a long ways away. It's going to draw people's attention. They're going to wonder what it is, and it's our house beer. That's what it is. So I'll tell you some more stories while I'm kind of drinking if you want. So I was going to elaborate a little bit on the story that Kat told about me asking them to make a house beer, and us talking about it. I'm not going to lie, Kat was not the only person I talked to about making us a house beer. Not, she doesn't. But let me tell you that the other people that I talked to, they wanted to make a deal. You need to sell this much of our beer before we would consider that. You need to do this, you need to do that. And then if you can do that, then call me and we'll talk. Every person told me the same thing, and I thought, this is ridiculous. appropriating your sales of the entire market. I'm like, that's, you know. So nobody was interested, or at least the first few people weren't interested. And I talked to Kat, and I'm not kidding, I mean, the story she told, she was like, yes, let's do it, it's done. And that was it. That was it. There was no negotiating, there was no anything. So, I mean, I'm thrilled that it worked out that way. And, you know, as a result, you'll notice that you might have noticed this in the last, you know, few months. You're going to see free tap handles from Mark Twain all the time on our lineup. And you're not going to see free handles from really anybody else except for maybe Schlafly, and that's it. And that's the reason. And I didn't negotiate that with her. She didn't ask me for anything. But because she agreed to do it, that's what I'm going to give them. You know, it's just that simple. So I just wanted to let you guys know that that's kind of how it went down. And I appreciate it, you know, very much that she was willing to do it. Now, if I don't sell any of it, I'm kind of screwed and I'm in trouble. And that's not Kat's fault, that's the distributor's fault. You know what I'm saying? So all I'm saying is drink the beer. What do you guys think? You guys like it? If you're not, you don't like hops at all, you might be a little too bitter for you, not a little too hoppy for you. But I really wanted to come up with a beer that if you like hoppy beers, you're going to like it. If you like malty beers, you're going to like it. And come up with something that is kind of so that's pretty much where the idea came from. What's the hop then?
Yeah, so the hops. So obviously, again, you know, talking about the process, I'll get right to that. Caramelized brown sugar. Basically, the way we do this is during the lautering process, so taking the wort from the mash tun and putting it in the kettle, we dump in the brown sugar into the kettle. We start feeding in a little bit of wort. We immediately turn on the heat and let that start heating up and stir the living heck out of it until we've got just enough wort in there to caramelize the brown sugar that's at the bottom. It kind of gives it a nice little burnt sugar type thing, a little bit of sweetness to help balance out the brown malt. And as far as the hops go, when you're dealing with a beer like this, the C hops are just, I mean, you have to be very careful. There's only one C hop that I thought would work, and it's Chinook. So Chinook has a little bit of a spicy type quality to it. It's not overly floral or overly citrus. Citrus is just not going to work in this beer, you know. So this ended up being, you know, I think a successful endeavor. And this is a beer that you could drink with pretty much, again, anything on his menu, which was a concern to me, again, as somebody who loves to do beer and food pairing. I think it's important always to consider if this is your house beer and people are going to be encouraged to drink it, well, they're also going to be eating here, so you want something that people can enjoy having with their food. So yeah, question. ABV on this is 6. Yep, 6%. And the IBUs, anybody want to take a stab?
40, 66, 77.
Yes, who said it? Who said 77? Raise your hand. It was designed to be 77. So yes, there are 77 IBUs. And this is for you. Yeah, well done. That was the geeky side of me, and I was like, Dave, we really got to make this 77 IBUs. And he was like, yes, let's do it. Goofy brewers, the things that we enjoy. Okay, other questions? Yeah. So it's Legacy 77 because I can tell you, but I think that it's probably best that Chad be the one to share that story with you.
I know some of you are friends on Facebook, and early in the summer, I put out a contest for people to come up with a name because I didn't want to name it. I really had no idea. I thought about it. I couldn't really come up with a name that I was happy with, so I was like, let's have a contest. So we had like, I don't know, 74, 75, something like that, ideas, and I went through them all, and I'm like, I don't like any of them. And I felt kind of bad. I'm like, it's not just, I want my own idea, because I already tried that. That didn't work. So I went through all these, and I was like, none of these are good, and I'm not really sure how it happened, to be honest with you. You know what happened, Dave? Well, yeah, I guess that's how it happened, right? So in June, my father passed away. I don't know if everybody knows that, but and he opened this restaurant in 1977. And so that's where the 77 comes from, and the fact that we we are known for beer, we're known for music, we're known for pizza, we're known for just the loop, kind of building it what it is. It's kind of, I guess, the beer is sort of the legacy it is, I guess. That's kind of why I named it that, but that's where the name came from. So.
Super cool name. Yeah. So he actually called me up as soon as and he was like, because I told him, hey, I got to submit a name to the TTB so that we can go ahead and get this beer approved and we can get it brewed. I literally just kegged this beer 2 days ago. So, I mean, it just was super fast, had to happen super fast to get that stuff into the TTB because, the government, they take like 20 times longer doing anything than it really should take. And so he calls me up and he says, what do you think about Legacy 77? And I was like, yes, that's awesome. Naming a beer is not always an easy thing to do, but I thought that was like, it fit perfectly. So yeah, we love it. The only other place that you will be able to ever get this beer is our tap room. So if you happen to be in Hannibal and you have a hankering for Legacy 77, swing on by. But I will tell you that the best price is going to be here because he was telling me. I mean, he's going to be selling this as the house beer, so it's going to be very affordable for you guys, and also will be available during happy hour as well.
So it's going to, honestly, we're taking a hit on it because I want
people to try it, and hopefully people will love it. But it'll be the cheapest craft beer that we have available. It's going to be a pint for $4. During happy hour, it'll be $2.
So drink up, people.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely grower up. Obviously, the best thing, what I would like to see is everybody standing around the bar at happy hour drinking this beer all the time. That would be great if we can make that happen. And that's one of the reasons why I did it. And the other reason is because, honestly, is that I need to sell on it. Because if I don't, then people might say you have to sell more and get upset. Hopefully we can sell enough of it. But that's just kind of how the business works. We don't want the beer to sit around too long. Cat's not a home brewer anymore, so it's not like you can just brew a couple kegs and call it a day. So,
That's very true.
We have a lot of beer, a lot of beer to sell. So if you like it, drink it. If you don't, then don't. If you know somebody that might, come for happy hour and buy one for $2.
Yeah. So there was a question, will you be willing to fill growlers of this beer?
Yeah,
That's what I was just saying.
It's no different than any other beer, so, I mean, the price of a growler is going to be $12.
Yeah, it is. For sure. Cool. So yeah, very unique beer. Only exclusive and lots of fun to make. What questions do you guys have about this beer? Any? This is one of my personal favorites. Okay. So, my husband and I used to be homebrewers. Most of you know this story, but I'll tell it anyway just in case some people don't. We used to be homebrewers. We had other professions. In my former life, I was an English teacher. I taught advanced placement literature and composition to high school seniors. They drove me to drink. My husband was in IT, so he was a tech geek. And we just fell more and more in love with homebrewing. And so one day, this is the shortened version, we decided we were going to quit our jobs, live on our savings for a year, and apprentice at a brewery. And so we did. We did that at O'Fallon Brewery in St. Louis, and we were very lucky to have that opportunity. So bottom line behind this is that we loved homebrewing, and we were constantly challenging ourselves to come up with recipes that we were really proud of. And this was one of them, actually. We used to call it Honey Dripper because it has a lot of honey in it. But we decided to change it to be a little bit more along the Mark Twain, obviously the Mark Twain theme, with Connecticut Yankee and King Arthur's Court. Those of you who came to the last beer school that I taught had book 1 of King Arthur's Court. This is book 2. So we plan to do a series of 3 of them. Each year we would do a different book for a different recipe every 4 months. But I really love this recipe, and I just don't know that I can get rid of it. So I don't know. We'll see. So the story behind this one here, it's 8.2% alcohol, 90 IBUs, which is very deceptive. This is like a perfect example of how you can't use a number for IBUs to kind of give yourself like some kind of preconceived notion of what this beer is going to taste like. IBUs are really kind of arbitrary in some way. This 90, I think our IPA, our regular IPA, has more bitterness actually present in it, and it's actually 85 IBUs. But anyway, so bottom line is it's 90 IBUs, and I think it's very well balanced with the malt and the hops.
I'm going to interrupt you for one
Yeah.
second. We're going to pour the next beer, but try not to drink too much of it.
What makes this beer unique is two different things. One is it has 120 pounds of wildflower honey from Honey Hive Farms in Winfield, Missouri. That's off of Highway 79. Do you know 79 that follows the Mississippi? So we found a bee farm there, and they have hundreds of hives. And we wanted to use local honey particularly because we like to support small businesses. I mean, which obviously makes sense. We're a small business. So we want to do as much local as we can. And so we found this bee farm, and I emailed the guy, and he was like, absolutely, let's do this. So this cool little bee farm, fabulous honey. We like the wildflower honey in particular because I think it gives a certain richness to it that you don't get from clover honey. Some of you who are bakers or you like honey, you know what I'm talking about. It's very unique flavor for wildflower honey in particular. So 120 pounds goes into every 10-barrel batch. That's a lot of honey. It's a very expensive beer to make because, as you know, honey is a very expensive ingredient. And we're buying them in 60-pound buckets. So it's like volume, obviously, it's a very expensive endeavor. But we don't want to cut corners. This is the way we want to make it. And we think if the product is right, don't mess with it. The other thing that makes it a very expensive beer is our use of some pretty rare hops. Two hops in particular that make this beer what it is. One is Mosaic. We use Mosaic hops all the way through the boil. A lot of Mosaic. Mosaic is one of those hops that's very difficult to get a hold of. Happily, and if you don't have a hops contract, to get certain hops, then it becomes very difficult for you to get a hold of hops at a decent price. We have had a couple of brewery friends who have been willing to sell us some Mosaic hops. Hopefully that will continue in the future. Most recently, our friends at Four Hands had some extra Mosaic, and I was talking to my friend Martin Toft, and he said, absolutely, we can sell you some hops. So hopefully we can eventually get to where we can get contract Mosaic hops, and it will make our lives a lot easier and less stressful in trying to find what we need. The other hops variety that goes into this that makes it unique is Galaxy. So we've got two Aussie varieties that are going into this beer. We don't actually use Galaxy in the beer making process itself. We dry hop it with a combination of Mosaic and Galaxy. So it's Mosaic all the way through the boil, and then it's a blend of Mosaic and Galaxy hops, which add, I think, a lot of those stone fruit notes, peach in particular, passion fruit, some of that. You get a little citrus, but I think there's just so much of that nice stone fruit aroma and flavor in this beer, and it complements the honey so well. We wanted these hops in particular because honey is such a delicate flavor that it would be very easily overpowered by hops like Centennial or Cascade. But for a Mosaic and for Galaxy, that I think works, like, partners very well with the honey. Yes, question? Uh-huh. We also dry hop it. We leave it in usually 3 to 4 days. We dry hop it before we blow the hops out. But yeah, so Mosaic and Galaxy is a blend of that, a number of pounds of each. Yep. Other questions about this beer? What do you think? Thumbs up? Yeah? Right on. 2 thumbs up. Fabulous. I'm hoping that this will be a beer that's here to stay for a while. So, any other questions before we start talking about this final beer?
I have a question about dry hopping.
Yes.
Is that just put in for a few days at like room
Yes, you don't want to do it after you've crashed the beer. You want it to be still at a warmer temperature, like fermentation temperature. So it goes through primary fermentation, and then after that, you put in the hops. So you put just the whole cone or the pelletized. We use pelletized for this. You put in the hops. You let it sit in that beer at that same temperature, room temp basically, 3, 4, sometimes 5 days. We just taste the beer, and then when we say, yep, this is right, then we're ready to blow those hops off. We'll drop the temperature of the beer and let it start conditioning. Yep. You don't want it to just sit on top of the hops indefinitely. That's just no bueno. Yeah. Any other questions? Ghost beer that never was supposed to make it out of the tap room. Because we are hoarding it at our tap room. There was very little of it, and so because of that, we didn't plan to distribute it. But then Chad was talking to me on the phone, and what Chad wants, Chad usually gets with me because I respect him very much. And he said, Kat, I really want to make this release something special. When we release Legacy 77, this is a very important class for me, and I'd also like to do something else special. Do you have any ideas? And I said, give me some time, I'll think on it. And then I was like, oh yes, we must do this. And so I brought a keg with me tonight of this beer. This is our Russian Imperial stout. We call it Passport to Russia. It is, it actually is based on the name is based on a short story by Mark Twain that a lot of people are not very familiar with, called A Belated Passport to Russia. And so the base beer we actually called a Passport to Russia. We only have like a couple barrels of the base beer, and that will not be distributed. That's taproom only. And then we barrel aged all the rest of it. And so we were kind of considering toying with the idea of making the base beer Passport to Russia and the barrel aged one the belated Passport to Russia, because it is belated, obviously. But anyway, at this point, the TTB knows it as Passport to Russia, so that's what it's going to stay for now. But anyway, so a Russian Imperial Stout. It is originally the base beer is 11.5% alcohol. This guy, after being barrel aged, is 13. So yeah. So anyway, we actually it's kind of a cool idea. We had not intended on aging this beer in anything but Four Roses barrels, which we do actually have quite a bit that's in Four Roses barrels right now being aged, and it will come out probably in December. And yes, we will distribute plenty of that beer, so it will be in the market, but not this. You guys are the only people who will have this beer. So actually, a friend of ours, Gary Heingardner, who is the distiller and owner of Wood Hat Spirits in New Florence, Missouri. If you're not familiar with New Florence, it's right off of I-70, basically between St. Louis and Columbia, somewhat equidistant, near Herman, Missouri wine country. And so he approached us and he said, I got this really cool idea. We would like to give you a few of our barrels, and you fill them with whatever you want to fill them with. And then, once you're done and you've emptied those barrels, give those barrels back to me, and I'm going to fill them with whiskey, and then I'll bottle that beer barrel-aged whiskey, and we'll do it as a Mark Twain Wood Hat collab. And I was like, yes, please. Is this even a question? So this guy is amazing. He's actually coming to the next class. He has a commitment right now, so he won't be able to be here during this class. But if you wanted to stick around and try to meet him later, if you wanted to have beer at the bar, whatever, and stick around, super nice guy, brilliant guy. He named his. Are you guys familiar with Wood Hat? Do you know? Yeah. A few of you, yes. Those of you who aren't, Gary is a woodworker. He actually he was a cooper. I mean, he actually used to make his own barrels that he would distill, and he would fill the barrels that he made. But he also carves hats, wood hats, and you generally will find him wearing a wood bowler. But he also does like paper thin different types of hats too. It's absolutely incredible. Yeah.
He's a lathe master. He turns those hats.
That's insane.
And
Oh, yeah, it's incredible. Like, there are times I've seen some of his hats, and I'm like, that's cloth. There's no way that's wood, but it's wood. So he gives us these 3 barrels. 2 of them are Two of them are yellow corn bourbon whiskey called Montgomery County Bourbon. And then the other one that he gave us was a blue corn whiskey, which I thought turned out to be very nice. But my favorite was one particular barrel, barrel 106. That's what you're drinking. I brought my favorite here tonight. So what I thought, after we had aged this beer in the barrels, Dave and I, we were tasting them, and I thought, they're all so good in their own right. We're not blending this. Let's just do single barrel passport to Russia kegs. And Dave's like, yes, let's do that. And so we labeled each one by barrel number because Gary is very methodical. He writes down every barrel number and what was in it, and then that way he keeps track of all the spirits he puts in these barrels and what beer went in them and all that. It's pretty amazing. And so anyway, this is barrel 106. It's Montgomery County Bourbon. That's one of the whiskeys that you have there. And then the other one, if I am not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chad, I believe that the other bourbon may be the one that he has pulled from our...
So we have, you can see on this, there's a little
date on here. It says 106. So this is a real down-home job here. But there are two whiskeys. The first whiskey is the 106. So the first whiskey that you got, that I gave you, is the whiskey that came out of the barrel before it went to CAC. The second whiskey is the whiskey that came out of the same 106 barrel after it had beer in it. So this is I really wanted to have a full experience for you guys for this class to be able to taste the beer, the whiskey before the beer, the whiskey after the beer, and have it just be, I hope that you guys can kind of sip each one.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, obviously the beer, the whiskey that Chad was just telling you about is the after, right? After the, a little of that. It's not done yet. Whiskey normally takes quite a while to age. And so Gary told me on the phone yesterday, hey, I've got this idea. I think it'd be cool for them to be able to try it, but please tell them that it's not in its final form yet. So you're getting it in its earlier stages, yeah.
This whiskey is not for sale yet. So that's not a good label on here, except for a piece of masking tape.
Right. On oak, Missouri white oak, for 10 months. Okay, not long, because I filled those barrels in June, and we emptied them exactly 2 months later. Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, what's up?
So Gary makes a big point of always saying that all the barrels he uses are made about a quarter-mile from his shop.
Yes, he uses a lot of local. He used to make his own barrels, and then, of course, at one point he had to make a decision: am I going to make whiskey, or am I going to continue making barrels? Because I don't have time to do both. He's just so busy now. So the barrels that he gets are made exactly to the same specifications that he used to make them. They're smaller than most whiskey barrels. They're 15-gallon. That is why we only had to age the beer for 2 months, because the Four Roses barrels are 55 gallons. They're big guys, right? These are 15-gallon. And so what takes 2 months to accomplish in a 15-gallon barrel is going to take more like 6 months to accomplish in a 55-gallon barrel. So, but yeah, these are little guys, and he does use a lot of local products. Not only the cooperage there, but also he uses a lot of locally grown grain as well, and fruit. He has a couple of cordials that he makes, so he does a lot of local. Yeah. I think he is not. I think that's where you primarily get that whiskey color, right? That caramel color is from the char. Yeah.
He actually has a whole gamut of different barrels.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a bunch of non-exos out back.
Right.
Kinds that he said he's organized.
Oh, I'm sure.
He really is.
I'm sure. Yep.
Sorry, guys, we're going to have to cut things a little, not short, really, but we got to have time to turn this room